The machines stopped beeping at 3:47 a.m. I watched the green line go flat, my calloused hand still gripping Grandma Rose's frail fingers as her spirit slipped away into whatever comes next. The sterile hospital room suddenly felt colder, emptier, like all the warmth had followed her out. "I'm sorry for your loss," the nurse whispered, but her words bounced off me like rain on a tin roof. Sorry didn't capture the hollow ache spreading through my chest. Sorry didn't acknowledge that the woman who'd raised me, who'd stood by me when everyone else walked away, was gone forever. Grandma Rose had been my anchor for 45 years, and especially these last 5, when I'd sacrificed everything to save her failing ranch. While my cousins built their careers and my siblings chased their dreams, I'd chosen to stay, to fight, to bleed for every acre of land that had been in our family for 3 generations. Her last words echoed in my mind. "Promise me you'll keep our land, Tommy. Promise me they won't take what we built together." I'd squeezed her hand and sworn I would, never imagining how quickly that promise would be tested. As I signed the paperwork with shaking hands, my phone buzzed with the first text, then another. Word traveled fast in small towns, and I could already feel the vultures circling. Family members who hadn't visited in years, who'd ignored every plea for help, were suddenly very interested in Grandma Rose's estate. I drove home through the pre-dawn darkness, knowing that the real battle was just beginning. The ranch that had nearly killed me to save was about to become a war zone, and I was standing alone on the front lines. The silence hit me like a physical blow when I returned from the hospital. Every creaking floorboard seemed to echo Grandma Rose's final words. "Promise me you'll keep our land, Tommy. Promise me they won't take what we built together." I walked through rooms that still smelled like her lavender soap and fresh-baked cornbread. Her reading glasses lay folded on the kitchen table next to yesterday's crossword puzzle, half finished. The coffee pot still held the bitter dregs of our last morning together when she insisted on making breakfast despite her trembling hands. 5 years, 5 goddamn years I'd been here, watching this place slowly come back to life under our combined efforts. When my marriage fell apart and the city job disappeared, Grandma Rose opened her door without hesitation. "This land needs someone who understands its soul," she'd said, her weathered hands gripping mine with surprising strength. I picked up the framed photo from the mantel, the 2 of us last Christmas, grinning like fools in front of the newly repaired barn. Behind us, you could see the fresh paint on the fence posts, the mended roof, the cattle grazing peacefully in fields that had been barren when I arrived. Every nail I'd hammered, every fence post I'd set, every sleepless night spent nursing sick calves. I'd done it all while my cousins lived their comfortable city lives, while my uncle pursued his real estate ventures, while my aunt traveled Europe with her new husband. The phone rang, jarring me from my memories. I'd let it go to voicemail, knowing instinctively what was coming. Word traveled fast in small towns, and vultures had excellent hearing when it came to the scent of inheritance. Grandma Rose had been gone less than 6 hours, and already I could feel the circling beginning. My cousin Marcus called at dawn. I was sitting on the porch where Grandma Rose and I shared coffee every morning, watching the sun paint the mountains gold. His voice carried that fake sympathy I remembered from childhood, the same tone he'd used when borrowing my toys and never returning them. "Tommy, man, I'm so sorry about Grandma Rose. She was really something special." "Special enough that you visited exactly twice in 5 years," I thought, gripping the phone tighter. "Listen, I know this is hard, but we need to talk about practical stuff. The funeral costs, the property taxes, all that legal mess. Maybe it's time to consider selling the ranch and splitting everything fairly among the family." Fairly, the word tasted like bile in my mouth. "What's fair about that, Marcus?" "Come on, don't be like that. We're all family here. Grandma Rose would want us to stick together, right? And let's be honest, that place is way too much for one person to handle. You've been killing yourself trying to keep it running." I stood up, my boots echoing on the wooden planks. killing myself? You mean working? You mean caring about something other than myself? That's not what I meant, and you know it. Look, I've already talked to a realtor friend. With the land values around there, we could be looking at serious money. Enough for everyone to start fresh. Start fresh. Like the 5 years I'd invested here meant nothing. Like the calluses on my hands and the ache in my back were just hobbies I could abandon. Marcus, I said, my voice deadly calm, when was the last time you set foot on this property? Silence. When was the last time you called Grandma Rose just to see how she was doing? More silence. That's what I thought. Don't call here again. I hung up and threw the phone onto the porch swing. The vultures weren't just circling anymore, they were landing. By noon, a parade of expensive cars was kicking up dust on our gravel road. First came Aunt Patricia in her white BMW, picking her way across the yard in designer heels that sank into the soft earth with each step. Behind her, Uncle Jim's silver Mercedes gleamed like an alien spacecraft against the backdrop of weathered barns and split-rail fences. I watched from the kitchen window as they gathered in our front yard like a war council, their city clothes and manicured appearances stark against the rural landscape that had shaped every day of my recent life. Patricia's perfectly styled hair caught the afternoon light as she surveyed the property with calculating eyes, probably already mentally dividing it into lots. "Tommy!" she called out, waving with false enthusiasm. "Sweetheart, we need to talk!" I stepped onto the porch, my work boots heavy on the wooden planks. The contrast between us was jarring, me in my faded jeans and flannel shirt, them in their business attire and jewelry that cost more than most people's monthly salary. "Patricia." "Jim." I nodded curtly. "Funny how you all found time to drive out here today. Grandma Rose would have loved to see you this eager to visit when she was alive." Patricia's smile faltered slightly. "Now, Tommy, that's not fair. We all had our own lives, our own responsibilities. But we're here now, and we need to discuss the future of this place." "The future?" I leaned against the porch railing, crossing my arms. "You mean your future profits from selling land you never cared about?" Jim stepped forward, his expensive suit looking ridiculous against the backdrop of hay bales and farm equipment. "Look, son, emotions are running high right now, but we need to be practical. This property has significant value, and there are legal considerations about inheritance that need to be addressed." Legal considerations. They'd done their homework fast. I could see the greed in their eyes, smell it like smoke on the wind. They'd probably been planning this conversation before Grandma Rose's body was even cold. "Get off my property," I said quietly. "Your property." Patricia laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Tommy, honey, this isn't how inheritance works." 3 days later, we sat in the cramped office of Harold Brennan, the family lawyer who'd served 3 generations of our clan. The air was thick with tension and expensive cologne that couldn't mask the stench of greed. Marcus fidgeted in his chair, Patricia kept checking her phone, and Jim drummed his manicured fingers on the polished table. I sat apart from them, still wearing my work clothes because I'd come straight from feeding the cattle. Let them judge me. I knew who belonged here and who didn't. Brennan adjusted his glasses and opened a manila folder with hands that shook slightly from age. "Rose's will is quite specific," he began, his voice carrying the weight of years spent mediating family disputes. "Just cut to the chase, Harold," Jim interrupted. "How do we divide the assets?" The old lawyer's eyes found mine across the table, and I saw something that might have been approval. The entire estate, all 500 acres, the house, the outbuildings, equipment and livestock, goes to Thomas William Henderson with one condition. The room erupted. Patricia's face went white, then red. Marcus started sputtering about legal challenges. Jim's carefully composed mask slipped, revealing the calculating businessman underneath. "That's impossible," Patricia shrieked. "She couldn't have been in her right mind." Brennan's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Rose was examined by 2 independent physicians in the weeks before her death. Both confirmed her complete mental competency. She was very clear about her reasoning. He pulled out a handwritten letter, Rose's familiar script dancing across the page. She wrote this explanation for the family. Would you like me to read it? Yes, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. To my dear family, Brennan began. I leave my land to Tommy because he earned it. While you built your lives elsewhere, he built his life here with me. He sacrificed his prime years to save our heritage when no one else would. This is not favoritism. This is justice. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, I could hear the cattle lowing in the distance, the sound of life continuing despite the storm raging in this sterile office. Brennan wasn't finished. He set down Rose's letter and picked up another document, this one bearing official seals and legal stamps. There is, however, one condition to the inheritance. My stomach clenched. Even in death, there were complications. Thomas must continue operating the ranch as a working agricultural property for a minimum of 10 years. If he sells or converts the land to non-agricultural use during that period, ownership reverts to a conservation trust that Rose established. Patricia leaned forward like a predator, sensing weakness. And what happens if he can't make it work? What if the ranch fails? Then the trust takes over, Brennan replied simply. Rose was very concerned about preserving the land's agricultural heritage. Marcus laughed bitterly. 10 years! Tommy, you'll never make it. This place has been bleeding money for decades. Grandma Rose was just too stubborn to admit it. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't been fighting those numbers every day for 5 years? Then be smart about this, Jim said, his voice taking on the smooth tone of a practiced negotiator. Sell now while the market's good. Take the money and start over somewhere easier. We'll even give you a larger share, say 40%, instead of splitting it evenly. 40% of what I'd bled for. 40% of what Grandma Rose had entrusted to me completely. You still don't get it, I said, standing slowly. This isn't about money. This never was about money. Everything's about money, son, Jim replied. You're just too naive to see it. To Dad, I walked to the window overlooking Main Street, where pickup trucks and farm equipment shared space with the occasional luxury car. You know what I see when I look at that ranch? I see Grandma Rose teaching me to ride when I was 6. I see my grandfather's hands building those fences that I've repaired a dozen times. I see early mornings and late nights and the satisfaction of honest work. I turned back to face them. You see dollar signs. That's the difference between us. Brennan cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Rose included a personal message for Thomas. He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Rose's shaky handwriting. I waited until I was alone in my truck before opening Rose's letter. My hands shook as I unfolded the familiar stationery she'd used for grocery lists and birthday cards, now holding her final thoughts. My dearest Tommy, it began. If you're reading this, then the vultures have gathered, just as I knew they would. Don't let their greed poison the love you have for our land. I had to stop reading for a moment, my vision blurring with tears I'd been holding back since the hospital. You gave me the greatest gift an old woman could ask for. You gave me purpose in my final years. When you came to me broken and lost, I thought I was helping you. But you helped me more. You reminded me why this land matters, why our family's legacy is worth preserving. A semi-truck rumbled past, shaking my pickup and bringing me back to the present. I was parked outside the lawyer's office, watching my relatives argue through the window like vultures fighting over carrion. The others will try to convince you that you're being selfish, that family means sharing everything equally. But family isn't about blood, Tommy. It's about showing up. It's about sacrifice and commitment and love that doesn't come with conditions. Udi, Rose's words cut through the noise in my head, the doubts that had been growing since Marcus's first phone call. You showed up every day for 5 years. You held my hand through the scary nights and celebrated the small victories with me. You earned this land with your sweat and your tears and your unwavering loyalty. I looked up at the mountains surrounding our valley, the same peaks that had watched over generations of my family. Somewhere up there, Rose's spirit was probably laughing at the chaos she'd left behind. Don't let them take what we built together. Don't let them turn our sanctuary into subdivisions and strip malls. This land chose you, just as you chose it. The letter ended with a postscript that made me smile through my tears. P.S. Check the old oak tree behind the barn. I left you something that might help with the vultures. I folded the letter carefully and started the truck. It was time to go home and see what other surprises Rose had left for me. The oak tree behind the barn was ancient, its massive trunk scarred by decades of weather and time. Rose and I had often sat in its shade during the hottest summer days, sharing cold lemonade and planning improvements to the ranch. Now I stood before it with a shovel, following her cryptic instructions. 3 feet down, my blade struck metal. I cleared away the dirt to reveal a weatherproof box, the kind used for important documents. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a thick folder that made my heart race. Bank statements, investment records, property assessments, and a letter from a development company offering $3 million for the ranch. An offer Rose had apparently received just 2 months before her death. $3 million. More money than I'd see in 10 lifetimes of ranch work. Enough to set up every family member for life, with plenty left over, and Rose had turned it down without even telling me. But there was more. Photographs dating back 50 years, showing the gradual decline of neighboring ranches as they were sold to developers. Aerial shots of what had once been rolling grassland, now carved up into housing developments and shopping centers. At the bottom of the box, another letter in Rose's handwriting. Tommy, I know you'll find this eventually. I want you to understand what we're really fighting for. This isn't just about our family's legacy, it's about preserving something that can never be replaced. She'd included newspaper clippings about the environmental impact of unchecked development, about the loss of agricultural land to urban sprawl, about the importance of maintaining green corridors for wildlife. The vultures will wave money in your face and tell you it's the practical choice. But some things are worth more than money. Some things, once lost, can never be recovered. I sat back against the oak tree, the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders like a heavy blanket. Rose hadn't just left me a ranch, she'd left me a mission, a calling to stand against the tide of development that was washing over our valley like a flood. My phone buzzed with another text from Marcus, probably another attempt to reason with me. I deleted it without reading and headed back to the house. I had work to do. Over the next week, the pressure mounted like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Marcus showed up with a real estate agent who walked the property with hungry eyes, taking photos and measurements. Patricia hired a lawyer who sent threatening letters about undue influence and mental incompetency. Jim started spreading rumors in town about my ability to manage the ranch effectively. But the worst part was the doubt they planted in my mind. Late at night, when the bills piled up on the kitchen table and the weight of responsibility felt crushing, I wondered if they were right. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I should take the money and run. Then I'd walk outside and see the cattle grazing peacefully in the moonlight, or catch the scent of hay drying in the fields, and remember why I was fighting. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning when I found Marcus and a surveyor on my property, marking trees for removal. They were planning the subdivision before I'd even agreed to sell. What the hell do you think you're doing? I stormed across the field, my boots squelching in the mud from the previous night's rain. Marcus had the decency to look embarrassed, but the surveyor just shrugged. "Just doing preliminary work. Your cousin said it was approved." "My cousin doesn't own this land. Get off my property. Now." Odbis, the surveyor, packed up his equipment with practiced efficiency, but Marcus lingered, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You're making a mistake, Tommy. A big one. This land is worth a fortune, and you're throwing it away for what? Some romantic notion about family heritage?" I stepped closer, close enough to see the fear flicker in his eyes. "You want to know what family heritage really means, Marcus? It means showing up. It means sacrifice. It means caring about something bigger than yourself. Spare me the lecture. You're not some noble guardian of the land. You're just a failure who's afraid to face the real world." The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my voice steady. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I am a failure, but at least I'm failing at something that matters." Marcus shook his head and walked away, but I could see the uncertainty in his shoulders. For the first time, I think he was beginning to understand what he was really asking me to give up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked the fence lines in the darkness, checking for breaks that didn't exist, looking for problems that weren't there. The familiar routine of ranch work usually calmed my mind, but tonight it felt like I was walking through a graveyard of dreams. At the old homestead foundation, where my great-grandfather had built the first house, I stopped and sat on the crumbling stone steps. 4 generations of my family had called this place home. 4 generations of sweat and tears and stubborn determination had built something lasting in a world that seemed increasingly temporary. I thought about Rose's letter, about the development company's offer, about the weight of preserving something that everyone else wanted to destroy. The responsibility felt enormous, like trying to hold back the ocean with my bare hands. My phone rang, startling me out of my brooding. It was Sarah Chen, my neighbor to the east, calling at nearly midnight. "Tommy, I'm sorry to bother you so late, but I wanted you to know Jim approached me today about selling my place. He said you were planning to develop the ranch and that I should get in on the ground floor." My blood ran cold. "Sarah, I'm not selling. Not to developers, not to anyone." "I know that, honey. I've watched you work that land for 5 years, but he was very convincing, and he had official-looking papers. I think he's trying to force your hand by getting the surrounding properties." After I hung up, I sat in the darkness for a long time, listening to the night sounds of the ranch, cattle shifting in their sleep, an owl calling from the old barn, the whisper of wind through the grass that had grown here for centuries before my family ever arrived. This wasn't just about money or family politics anymore. This was about the soul of the valley, about preserving something irreplaceable in a world that measured everything by its market value. I made my decision sitting on those old stone steps, with the weight of history pressing down on my shoulders, and the promise I'd made to Rose echoing in my heart. The family meeting was set for Saturday morning at the ranch. They came in force: Marcus, Patricia, Jim, and a handful of cousins I barely recognized, all accompanied by lawyers and real estate agents. They set up in my living room like an occupying army, spreading contracts and financial projections across Rose's antique coffee table. I stood in the doorway, still wearing my work clothes from the morning chores, and watched them divide up my life on paper. "Tommy," Patricia began, her voice sickeningly sweet, "we've worked out a very fair arrangement. The development company has increased their offer to $4 million. Even after taxes and fees, you'd walk away with over $1 million. You could buy a nice house in town, maybe start a small business. Or," Marcus added, "you could invest the money and live comfortably for the rest of your life. No more 18-hour days, no more worrying about cattle prices or weather. You'd be free." Free. They kept using that word like it was something I wanted. Like the life I'd built here was a prison instead of a calling. Jim spread out architectural plans, showing how the ranch would be transformed into Heritage Meadows, a luxury subdivision with houses starting at $500,000. We'd even name it after the family. Rose would be honored. I looked at the plans, seeing my grandfather's fields carved up into quarter-acre lots, the old barn converted into a community center, the creek where I'd learned to fish turned into a decorative water feature. "You know what would really honor Rose?" I said quietly, keeping her land the way she wanted it. "Tommy, be reasonable," one of the lawyers interjected. "You can't fight progress forever. This valley is going to develop whether you participate or not. At least this way, you profit from it." I walked to the window overlooking the fields, where Rose and I had spent countless hours planning and dreaming. In the distance, I could see the cattle grazing peacefully, unaware that their world was being negotiated away in my living room. "You're right," I said finally, turning back to face them. "I can't fight progress forever." Their faces lit up with triumph, thinking they'd finally broken me. "But I can fight it today, and tomorrow, and every day after that until I die." The room erupted in angry voices and threats of legal action. Patricia accused me of being mentally unstable. Marcus threatened to have me declared incompetent. Jim promised to make my life miserable until I came to my senses. I listened to it all with a strange sense of peace, like standing in the eye of a hurricane. These people shared my blood, but they weren't my family. Family didn't try to destroy what you loved most. "You're all missing the point," I said when the shouting died down. "This was never about the money. Rose knew that when she wrote her will. She knew that I was the only one who understood what this place really means." "What it means?" Patricia laughed bitterly. "It's dirt, Tommy. Grass and dirt and a bunch of smelly animals. You're throwing away millions of dollars for dirt." I walked over to the mantel and picked up the photo of Rose and me from last Christmas. "You see dirt. I see home. You see a business opportunity. I see a sacred trust." "Sacred trust?" Marcus shook his head in disgust. "You sound like a crazy person." "Maybe I am crazy. Maybe you have to be a little crazy to believe that some things are more important than money. But I'd rather be crazy and poor than rich and empty." The lawyers started packing up their papers, muttering about appeals and legal challenges. The real estate agents looked disappointed, probably already calculating their lost commissions. My relatives filed out one by one, their faces masks of anger and disbelief. Marcus was the last to leave. He paused at the door, his expression almost pitying. "You know what's going to happen, don't you? You're going to struggle for years, barely keeping this place afloat. You'll grow old alone, working yourself to death for a piece of land that doesn't care about your sacrifice. And when you die, there'll be no one left to carry on. The developers will get it anyway." His words stung because there was truth in them. I was 45 years old, unmarried, with no children to inherit my legacy. The ranch that I was fighting so hard to preserve might die with me. "Maybe you're right," I admitted. "Maybe I'll fail. But at least I'll fail trying to do something worthwhile." Marcus shook his head and walked away, leaving me alone in the house that suddenly felt both empty and full of possibility. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the porch where this whole story began, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. The legal challenges have been resolved. Rose's will was ironclad, and my ownership is secure. The family has stopped calling, stopped threatening, stopped pretending they care about anything other than money they'll never see. The ranch is thriving in ways I never expected. Word spread about my fight to preserve the land, and I've been contacted by conservation groups, sustainable agriculture organizations, and young farmers looking for opportunities to learn traditional methods. The place that once felt like a burden has become a beacon. I've hired 2 full-time hands, local kids who understand the value of honest work and the satisfaction of caring for the land. We're implementing new grazing techniques that improve soil health while maintaining profitability. The cattle are healthier, the grass is greener, and the bank account, while not overflowing, is stable. More importantly, I've found peace. The doubt and anger that consumed me during the family battle has been replaced by a quiet confidence in my choices. Every morning when I walk these fields, I feel Rose's presence, her approval, her love for the land we both called home. Yesterday, a young couple from the city stopped by, asking if I'd consider selling just a small parcel for their dream house. They offered a fair price and promised to respect the agricultural nature of the property. I politely declined, but their interest reminded me that the pressure will never completely stop. That's okay. I'm not fighting for a temporary victory. I'm fighting for something eternal. This land has been here for thousands of years before my family arrived, and it will be here long after we're gone. My job isn't to own it, but to protect it, to be its guardian for whatever time I'm given. The sun is fully up now, and there's work to be done. Cattle to check, fences to mend, hay to cut. The same work my grandfather did, and his father before him. Honest work that connects me to something larger than myself, something worth preserving. I stand up, feeling the familiar ache in my back and the satisfaction in my soul. Somewhere in the distance I can hear the cattle calling, the sound of life continuing as it has for generations. Rose was right. This land chose me, just as I chose it, and I'll spend whatever years I have left proving worthy of that choice.